I bet you, like me, would like to create a strong family culture that creates a sense of cohesion, of belonging, of safety and security, of love and connection and all that good stuff for your child. But perhaps you are wondering, how does one go about that? If you didn't come from a very strong family culture yourself, maybe you experienced turmoil or instability or a broken sense in your own home of origin, then you might not know where to start or what to do. Now, there are many different ways to build a strong family culture, a culture of cohesion and togetherness, a culture of resilience and mutual support and respect. There isn't just one way, but in today's video, I want to outline 5 things that will certainly lead to a stronger family and 5 practices that most strong families that I know absolutely do. Now, if you don't do all of these practices, it doesn't necessarily mean that your family has a weak family culture. But if you do all of these practices, then you're probably on the right track to guaranteeing a stronger sense of family belonging. Hi, I'm Avital. Welcome back to Hi Fam, where I am on a mission to help you to build that strong family culture we've been talking about. To really love parenting, to feel like you are the leader in your home, like you're living your values and imparting your wisdom for your children and being that guide that your children really need and deserve. To that end, I want to talk about the culture of the home, and this is what I do. This is where I apply all of my experience as a mother of 5, but also all of my experience as a designer, thinking about systems and solutions to problems. And as I look at the kind of crumbling sense of family togetherness, where each family member is siloed off on their phones, in their work, and kind of uninvolved and perhaps sometimes even feeling isolation within the family, I have to look at practical solutions. And to do that, I really scan research from academia to the practical and clinical, my own life experience, my students from all over the world, and any source that I can get my hands on that might lead to inspiring practical solutions to creating a greater sense of cohesion within the family. Many of these ideas are ancient traditions that I try to blend and rework to make sense for modern day living. And what follows is no exception. So what do strong families do? Well, here are 5 ideas. Number 1, strong families have meals together. Now I know for some of you, you're like, duh, Vital, we do this every single day. And for others of you, you're like, oh no, I could never get us all sitting around the table at the same time. Some of you are having TV dinners on the go in separate tiers, and some of you are having a full family feast every single day like clockwork. Here's the thing I want to say. Having meals together, breaking bread together, sitting around the proverbial or literal campfire and singing songs together or saying prayers together is an ancient tradition. As humans, as social mammals, we gather, we band, we tell stories, and we engage in meaningful conversations by gathering together at the mealtime. That is a very ancient tradition. Now, many modern families with our modern schedules aren't quite able to pull it off on a day-to-day basis. But what's really crucial is that you at least pull it off once a week. This is one of the projects that I teach inside of the studio, my membership, which is dedicated to supporting you in building a strong family and really being the leader that creates that culture that you'd like to see. Inside of the membership, we take on a project every quarter. And one of the projects is creating a family feast, making sure that we are gathering together. And I call it a feast because it is a little bit more festive. It is a little bit more special. Many traditions have this, like the Sabbath meal in Jewish tradition, where families expect to be sitting together and breaking bread and having meaningful conversations about values and ideas. There is really interesting psychological research that links having family meals with better results for children. Lower levels of incarceration and substance abuse, lower levels of teen pregnancy and crime, lots of real improvements and benefits like getting better scores in academics and having a better social life. These are the types of results we want for our children, and what could be easier than to create the stability with a meal once a week? Well, I know some things could be easier, but as far as investment goes, this is a pretty doable thing that gives pretty outsized results. Now, I'm not going into the causation and correlation pieces here and whether it's a double-blind study and all of the research background of this, but what I just want you to walk away with is the idea that meals together matter, and people who have strong family cultures make sure to have them. And if you think about it, it makes sense. When we're sitting around the table, eating together, we're laughing, we're sharing about our day, we're sharing about our struggles and our worries. It's an opportunity to connect, to make eye contact. It's an activity that's generally screen-free, and we're able to truly be present with each other in a relaxed and informal setting that allows us to share and to bring up any concerns we might have and seek support from our family, creating debate and lively conversation. The second thing that people with a strong family culture do is that they have a shared sense of history. Yeah, you might have thought I was going to say a shared sense of vision and of values, and those things are certainly true as well, and we work on that inside of the studio. But another thing that is pretty critical is knowing where we come from. What led us to this point? Understanding who our family is. Whether it's understanding our genealogy and ancestry, or more importantly, understanding the stories that we grew up on, the narrative of the family, how we perceive ourselves, what kind of people are we? These are the types of things that actually shape us and shape our family culture. Families who feel completely disconnected from their roots. I don't know who my grandparents were or where they came from or what kind of things they went through, actually often feel a little bit disconnected from themselves. They feel unsure or insecure about their own identities and where they're going in this world. Because often to understand where we're going, we can be well served by first understanding where it is that we came from. It helps us make sense of ourselves, and it helps us to place ourselves on a continuum. That feeling of ultra solo individualism, where each of us is siloed off, we're a completely fresh canvas, a new slate, like I am completely separate from the ancestors that came before me, that can often lead people to feeling a little bit like they're floating, like they're untethered, like they don't belong anywhere, like they don't have a clear sense of identity, and it can lead them to just search and cling on to all sorts of identities and groups that they don't necessarily belong to or align with because they're so thirsty for that feeling of being grounded, of sending down roots, of belonging somewhere. That's something that strong family culture can offer our children. When we give them a clear sense of who they are, of where they come from, of what the stories that they are going to grow up on are, our stories of origin, as it were. Right? This is something that every startup knows, every business knows. You need an origin story. You need to understand why you came into this world, why you were formed. And the truth is that we as individuals can benefit from that as well. Strong family cultures create a sense of cohesion and joint identity. That's what tribes are. They have an interconnected sense, not just of their genes, but also of their history and values. And that is something that people with a strong family culture really look into. They accentuate it, they research it, they find fascination with their roots. Number 3, healthy habits. Strong family culture is linked to being strong in general. That is mental strength and physical strength. Now, many of us, or perhaps all of us, have some kind of illness and disease or diagnoses in our family. But if we want to maintain a sense of strong family culture, one of the things that we must emphasize is having healthy habits in our lives. In other words, people who are completely depleted by sleep, right? Who are so exhausted, who can't think straight, can't possibly take upon themselves to establish great rituals and traditions or to look into their history, right? Or even to create a family meal together. When we're falling off our feet from being so tired, we don't show up very well, and neither do our children. When we feel really unhealthy in our bodies because we never move, because we have no strength, then we're not going to be able to actually have the kind of energy that it takes to lead a family, right? We feel lethargic, we feel uncomfortable, we feel pain. So that's why I say that families who want to create this kind of cohesive and strong family culture need to establish just good day-to-day lifestyle habits. That's why inside of the studio we focus on things like family rest or like family fitness and making sure that we have the basics of our health down. There is always room to grow, and there are always surprises and things that are out of our control. But whatever's within our control, we want to actually put an effort towards and put intention on so that we can bring out the best for our family. If your child is severely sleep deprived, if your child is sedentary all the time, if your child is not eating well and their diet is really not supporting their best behavior, then it's hard to move on to building that strong family culture. And of course, all of that is true for you as well. And that's why the first step, or one of the steps, in creating a firm and incredible and inspiring and empowering family culture in the home is to make the home a somewhat healthier one. So ask yourself, is this something we need to focus on? Do we need to reclaim our sleep? Do we need to get better about having a meal plan and sticking to it? Do we need to have more opportunities to be in nature or to be moving our bodies? If so, these are all things I can coach you on inside of the studio. But whether or not you join, I really want you to think about it and set those goals so that you can create that strong family culture that we're here for. Number 4, people with a great family culture have a great home. No, I'm not talking about real estate. I'm not talking about the size of the home. I'm not talking about whether it's a rental or you've bought it. I am talking about having a physical space that is cozy, that is warm, that is safe, that is your fortress. Cultures are typically grounded in a physical space. They belong to a particular country or a particular city, right? If I talk about the culture in London, I'm talking about the culture that is bound to that specific location geographically. And the culture in your family home, whilst it certainly will spilleth out, it originates and is most intensely felt inside the walls of your home. Now, it's really hard to have a meaningful and enjoyable and empowering family culture when the home feels like chaos, when you're overrun by clutter, when the actual place that you're in isn't very high vibe. It feels stressful. It feels like somewhere you want to escape. To create a compelling culture, a culture that your children will want to continue as a legacy for generations forward, the home itself needs to be physically pleasant. Yeah, it needs to be emotionally and psychologically pleasant too, but first and foremost, it's got to be physically a cozy, lovely, safe, warm environment to live in. And that is why inside of the studio, we put a big emphasis on creating a high vibe space, on minimalism or decluttering at the very least, and on creating dedicated zones that are going to inspire particular behaviors, like the place where we snuggle up and read together, or the place where we sit for our family meal. You know, it's a great example. If my dining table is covered in clutter and piles and computers and gadgets, it's going to be really hard for us to sit around and have a lovely family meal where we really dive into deep conversation. By contrast, if I ensure that the space is serving that ends, that I am actually making sure we have the means to meet these goals, then the goals are going to be easier to come by. Just like if I want to have great sleep, I need to make sure that we have a sleep hygienic environment, right? If there's bright lights and loud noises, we're not going to be able to meet those goals. Our home is where we express our family culture. The very art that we have on the walls, the very way that we decorate, the very way that we declutter or not, reflects who we are, what we value, what we find beautiful. Those are the types of things that we need to focus on in shaping and in intentionally reflecting what it is that we value and what lifestyle and values we're trying to impart to our children. And finally, number 5, people with a strong family culture have rituals, have traditions, and have rites. Yes, people who create a culture, any culture, have a special sensitivity towards time and towards how we spend that time, what we do with that time. Things like how we celebrate birthdays or anniversaries or memorial days in our family. This is what is going to impart our values and our lifestyle to our children. This is where we show them what we value, what we celebrate, how we celebrate. And this is where we create that kind of pacing, that cadence that tells them, yep, every Sunday we do this. Every evening we do this. Every year we do this. Whenever someone in our family hits 15, we do this. These are the rites of passage into adulthood, the rituals of coming together with our community, our friends, and our family, or the day-to-day routines that keep our family running smoothly and stop us from slipping into chaos and stress. People who want to build a strong culture make sure to pay good attention to schedules and calendars, to routines, to traditions that help them to mark the significant occasions and to meet the goals that they have in their culture. If one of my goals is for us to sleep well as a family, that's something that my routines are going to reflect. Again, this is something I teach in depth inside of the studio. Make sure to check it out. But really I want you to look around and reflect, how do we spend our time? Because what we do as a family on a day-to-day level, on the weekends, in the summer holidays, in any time, is a direct reflection of our family culture. What is our family culture? What are we spending our time doing? If you look at how we spend a day off, how we spend an evening, or how we spend the summertime, it's going to show you what we do as a family, what our culture is. And people with strong family cultures, they pay attention to that and they craft those. They have their annual traditions, they have their monthly rituals, they have their daily routines down pat. Now, if that sounds too rigid, it can obviously be flexible and have lots of room for spontaneity, but it's not going to be haphazard or chaotic. It's going to be well thought through and intentional, because that's what crafts that family culture that they're looking for. If you found this useful, enlightening, inspiring, or perhaps really triggering and you completely disagreed and felt great resistance towards it, cool. Use that to really think about your own family culture and how you're going to build a strong family bond and sense of belonging that's going to last your children's lifetime and even beyond that. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave me a comment below telling me which of these points was most useful for you, which of them you need to work on the most, and what you'd like to hear more from me about. I will see you in the next video. Keep on living that high fam life.